Alright, so for those of you who are unaware, Raised by Wolves is a new television show that comes on HBO Max. If you haven't seen it and you're used to my Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, and House of the Dragon videos, then I recommend you stop and go and binge watch that show because as of yesterday, it just wrapped up its first season. And another warning I want to give you before you even watch this, if you've already seen Raised by Wolves, is that this video is going to be more of a breakdown / questions, and I'll be answering those questions that I think are proposed by just simply watching the series, but I'm going to answer them in my opinion. So this video is going to be heavily opinion focused, and if you have a different opinion than mine, well then please let me know down in the comment section. And also I want to let you know, if you haven't watched YouTube in a while, YouTube actually moved the comment section to right below the like to dislike ratio. I think that's affected the comments somewhat, and I haven't gotten to get you all's opinion as much. Please let me know your thoughts down below. Now jumping right into things, the first question that I want to propose, and I think it's something we're all thinking, what the fuck is this serpentine creature? It can somehow levitate and cross, I guess, transverse gravity on this planet. Clearly it has gravity as the humans are walking around on Earth, or dirt rather, but what the fuck is this thing? Like, it doesn't really make sort of any sense until you start to look at the little hieroglyph things that have been shown in the caves multiple times, and the imagery that we've been shown this entire series, including all those skulls on the ground. I think that's pretty much confirmed to be previous versions of this snake-like creature. But one of the things that first popped in my head, or one of the first questions rather, is it invulnerable? And why did it grow so quickly? It really doesn't make any sense. So Mother, while she was pregnant, and if you're unaware, I actually broke down episode 8. I never covered episode 9 because I put out episode 8 before actually watching episode 9, and after watching episode 9, I wanted to wait until after the season wrapped up. This video is going to focus on episode 10. If you all want and you enjoy these videos and they do well then I'll cover the entire series. I'll do like maybe, I don't know, an hour and a half podcast with a friend of mine who also makes YouTube videos. Not sure yet. I need to find out who watches this show, but we'll go super in depth that way. But is it invulnerable? Can it teleport? I mean, it seems as though it was able to move the little transversing pod thing that Mother and Father were in when they were flying towards the core. Speaking of which, all those little vents all over the planet had heat coming off of them, which was confirmed by Marcus and some of the other Mithraics that, there was a heat source coming off those things. And then we also had that weird block type device. I don't know, that's something to get into at another. That'll sidetrack me too much. But one thing that I did want to mention is the fact that this snake thing seems to be able to teleport through the magma core. It seems to be some sort of super intelligent creature as well, because when it saw what Father was doing and pushed Mother out of the plane, it bared its teeth. So it makes me wonder if it's not going to have some sort of connection to Mother in this next season. Another thing to talk about, this is also sort of sidetracked, is that did they survive the plane crash? Did they, to put it quite simply, they're androids, and we've seen them survive worse injuries, so I'm pretty sure they will. They'll just have to be repaired, like always. It's sort of like the most indestructible plot armor. We know Mother and Father are probably going to live a lot longer than any humans in this series. One thing I was thinking is that maybe the Mithraics are working with these alien creatures. I'll go further on that theory a little bit later in this video, but they're working with the aliens after maybe the Mithraics saw the planet, Kepler 22b and the stars. They knew they had to collaborate with them in order for the human race to survive. The Mithraics and the atheists are blaming, blowing up the planet on one another, and that's going to be a recurring plot, is that, like, everybody's gray. We don't know who actually is at fault other than the person who maybe set off the bombs or created the necromancers, which are, that's given to the Mithraics as creating that technology. One of the things I noticed is that the last android container, like basically that little weird spherical, well, it's not a sphere, it's like a hexagonal, it looks like a 3D stop sign, we'll say that shit, I don't know what shape it is, but it looked like it contained the last android that they had to do this pregnancy ritual with. So I'm assuming that this time they decided to manipulate Mother a different way. They decided to manipulate the android the first time, or maybe they didn't decide to manipulate the android the first time, and this is why they had to use that weird device to contain it. It had to keep it in one place in order for the snake creature to be born, because the android probably figured out what it was and decided to kill itself. So that weird mask thing is all just probably something to contain the last necromancer's eyes. But I'm assuming that ritual maybe failed, which is why they had to do it again, and it makes me think that the way they decided to go about this way by sort of influencing the android through its vulnerabilities makes me think that maybe the Mithraics are working with it. They pretend to be the atheists and all sort of like to just make this plot. It's sort of like, you know that movie with Jim Carrey? The Truman Show, where basically his entire life is like this reality TV plot. It's sort of like that combined with the Matrix. They had to fuck with this android's mind, that being Mother, in order to get this ritual to happen successfully. Maybe it's the snake creature is a human super alien hybrid that has to have this android DNA because it's the only creature that could survive this planet's habitat. We can see that it can traverse gravity. I don't know if we'll call it flying because it's pretty much flying. It's just interesting that it didn't choose to maybe save Mother and do the teleporting I don't know. We have some more powers that need to be figured out with this snake. Weird baby. And the last thing I want to mention about this snake creature before moving on, which I'm pretty sure I'll inevitably mention it again in this video, is that the snake may also not only have the potential to survive on this planet, but it may also have the potential to be the creature from that prophecy that everybody keeps fucking mentioning. You know, the voice that everybody's Saul, everybody, the thing that the Mithraics are following doesn't really make sense, but maybe this snake creature is the thing that's going to build the city. And there are, in fact, more of those alien creatures that Mother killed on that planet somewhere we just haven't seen yet. Maybe they're in the subtropical zone. Maybe that's why that voice is actually the aliens. Maybe that's what these Mithraics and the people who follow Saul and Marcus, who is like, I think, suffering from the brain disease you get when you're under the hypersleep in order to get to the planet Kepler 22b. But I think that voice may be the aliens, and they have this telepathic ability. There's probably more of those creatures, and they're in their subtropic zone that everybody keeps mentioning. But remember when the boy Paul was like, "Nah, yeah, I don't think we should go there. It's a bad idea. The baby thinks we should stay here." That's probably because that voice, like he said, Saul told him to stay there. That's likely where the rest of these alien creatures are, and I think the things they were eating were actually devolved humans. We saw that the creature that Mom killed, which is probably a breakaway creature from the aliens that the Mithraics have a deal with, you know, the original inhabitants of that planet. That creature that Mother killed is the same one that's been leaving the clues all throughout the series, but I'm pretty sure that the whole point in all this, that these creatures need this super snake baby monster created by Mother, which is an android human hybrid. I'm pretty sure they need it to rebuild their population, and I think that those creatures, like I was just mentioning, that the first, I guess, the Gen 2 children and Mother feasted on are actually devolved humans. That's what we'll find out, because remember that alien that she killed was carrying a Neanderthal skull, and I think he brought it to show to everyone else after he killed Mother because he was trying to prevent that prophecy from happening. Maybe this alien that defected that Mother killed, we'll find out, had a relationship with some previous humans that were on there, maybe grew affectionate towards them. Maybe that was the skull of his former lover. Maybe these aliens live a really long time, and I'm rambling at this point, but what I'm getting at is that we will likely find out about more of this in Season 2. But the last thing I want to mention on that before I move on is that I think the whole point in using the Necromancer is that it has the power over life and death. Like, it maybe has the potential to reverse time. I don't really know how that works, but I think that's why the aliens need the Necromancer. The Necromancer, or the android, has some super ability, or carries some ability in its DNA to make this snake creature have all of its abilities. So they have to have these Necromancers that have been deprogrammed and decommissioned, so to speak, in order to hatch these super alien creatures. You all let me know what you think down below. Now, just to reference again before I move on to my next point, I do think that the voice that everyone's hearing, all the different characters on the planet, it is that they're referring to as Saul, is actually the aliens. They're affecting them in ways they want them to do things. And sometimes they do different things, and that would be because there's different aliens manipulating the humans to do these things. Also, I'd be a fool to not mention how shitty the CGI was on the baby snake creature. I just don't really want to spend that much time on it because this is HBO, baby, not Netflix. We saw how shitty the dragon was in The Witcher. This is not the same same program. This is HBO. I'm pretty sure the budget probably just ran super thin. And also, they've got to give us something to complain about, because otherwise the episode was fucking flawless, baby. And because it is so spectacular, props to Ridley Scott, who directed, I think, the first 2 or 3 episodes and is the executive producer, but also to Aaron Guzikowski. I'm not sure how to say that. He's the creator of the show. This is clearly, I think, linked to Prometheus and Alien, that universe, which is why I want to get to the main point in this video, because we're sort of getting towards that. I think even though he said it's in a, not quote, not verbatim, but he basically said that it's in a similar universe, but they don't quite connect, I think he's playing that out. There may be eventually a movie down the line that he does, that may be linked to this show directly if it does well enough. But props to Aaron Guzikowski and Ridley Scott. Thanks for bringing us such an amazing show. One thing I want to mention is the planet Kepler-22b that all of this, for the most part, the main story is taking place on, is a real planet. It's also known as Kepler object of interest designation K0I-087.01 is an extrasolar planet orbiting within the habitable zone of the sun-like star Kepler-22. It is located about 638 light-years from Earth in the constellation of Cygnus. And for those space nerds like me, literally every other shirt I own is a fucking NASA shirt, but Cygnus is a northern constellation lying on the plane of the Milky Way, which the Milky Way is our galaxy. Deriving its name from the Latinized Greek word for swan, Cygnus is one of the most recognizable constellations of the northern summer and autumn, and it features a prominent asterism known as the Northern Cross. All that basically means nothing to us in relation to the show, because we haven't really figured that out yet. Maybe they'll point to the fact that Cygnus, or this galaxy or constellation of stars that Kepler-22b is based in, is just close enough. 638 light years away, or whatever it was, isn't that far when it only takes them, I guess, 587 light years, however long that is, judging by the speed of their engines. But it's awesome that they choose, and the whole point of me mentioning that is that they choose real life and real world stuff. Much like Game of Thrones, it's based on real world history. It's awesome to reference real life things. There may be potentially a planet on the edge of the Milky Way that has an inhabitable environment like Earth, and it really just adds to the realism of a show. Speaking of show, Travis Fimmel is a pretty badass face actor. I think he's one of those actors that does a really good job of doing like facial expressions, which makes his scenes that are just one-on-one or just close-up of him that much more intense, and it makes me want to mention that he is reportedly going to be cast in the new House of the Dragon series, starring in the new series House of the Dragon based on Game of Thrones, which in my opinion is the greatest series of all time. But it's awesome to see Travis' skill in thinking that he may be potentially cast in this new show. If that's the case, and I think it's interesting to see him in an all-white uniform on a planet with locations that look similar to where he may film some scenes in the House of the Dragon, if it's true, and also the fact that he's wearing all white in the rumor of him playing Daemon, which means he'll be pledging allegiance to House Targaryen, but ultimately the blacks. It's cool to see the contrast in between the colors, and I could just be going down a rabbit hole here, because that could just be a fucking rumor. But HBO, if you're listening, give this man a fucking job. I don't know if he could be cast as Daemon because he's not quite old enough, but a lot of people want to see Charlie Hunnam as Daemon Targaryen. My personal opinion is that I've never seen Charlie Hunnam act because I didn't watch Sons of Anarchy, and I have seen the boy Travis, and he's got the chaps. Now, the last couple things that I want to talk about real quick is the weird reverse pregnancy thing that happened with Mother, which leads into my ultimate theory, I guess, for this next season, and maybe the whole series in general. The other arc arriving, which is more so just a reference to I fucking told you so guy who commented in my comment section and said, there are no more arcs. I know this because this is my opinion and I'm stating it as fact. Well, I told you so, buddy. If I'm not mistaken, someone even commented below when I responded to you stating that most of what you commented was your opinion, is that they've mentioned that there are other arcs, and I think I had remembered that. I just couldn't at the time of responding to that comment. But moving on. Now, the reverse pregnancy, and my big theory about this whole universe is that it's heavily influenced by Ridley Scott. He created Alien, which a lot of people consider the greatest sci-fi movie of all time. I am not one of those people who consider that, but I do consider it one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. And he loves to, tie in universes. And I think this, reverse pregnancy and the way that Mother was sort of gagging up the baby when it was born, that reminded me of a xenomorph or a baby, a face hugger. That whole, gagging it up, and then there's, the slimy substance. That's very Ridley Scott, and it makes me think that maybe this whole universe, with Mother having mentioning a few episodes ago that humans war against one another, maybe this whole thing is going to be aliens, a different type, a hybrid alien, not the one from Alien or Ridley Scott's original film from the 80s, but a hybrid one, and the whole premise of this series is to be humans versus aliens. Now, I know that's pretty simplistic, but you all let me know what you think down below. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here because I just rambled for 15 minutes straight. Thank you, and brought to you by these individuals right here, who are all members of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHunsReviews.